Morning, everyone. Welcome to the fourth and final webinar on case writing. The topic for today's webinar is writing a robust teaching note. This is an extremely important topic. We already have three topics discussed on case writing, and that was all related to the case. But this is exclusively focused on the teaching note. And it is also one of the most important things if you want to write a case that is not only publishable but also very useful for classroom use. So the objectives that we have set for today's webinar is that after this webinar you will understand the considerations in writing a teaching note, you will understand the significance of the teaching note, what contents are there in the teaching note, and also you will know how to write a teaching note that is useful but also goes towards making the case publishable. So earlier we have discussed what makes a good teaching case, and we have devoted a lot of time on how you can make a case relevant, well researched, and also write it really well. And the other thing is that the case also has to be useful. And we have also discussed certain things like what makes a case useful, because a good case remains current, interesting, and challenging. And for that, the versatility of the uses is of prime importance, as is the useful life of the case. And how you can do that, we have discussed in the last webinar on how to write a teaching case. The other thing that is most important that goes towards making a case useful is that the case has to be accompanied by a solid teaching note. So this is what we are going to devote our discussion to today. So let us see how we can write a robust teaching note. But first of all, let us discuss, because this can be the elephant in a room, because there are a lot of academics who may even discredit a teaching note, asking the question whether a teaching note is required at all. And it makes sense also in some ways, in the sense that you give a case to a bunch of students who may be totally inexperienced or have little experience of a business situation, and you expect them to solve that, and you are preparing a teaching note or an instructor manual and giving it to the teacher, who is supposed to be more knowledgeable. That thing apart, one of the things that we also need to understand is that we want some kind of consistency while teaching the case. So that is also one of the reasons a teaching note is developed. The other thing is to help the teacher to get the best out of the class discussion, because we want to make it as easy as possible for the teacher to take the case to the class and make the most out of the objectives that you have set and achieve those objectives in the classroom. And that is why the teaching note is only for the teachers and not for the students. And a teaching note is also called the instructor manual. Particularly in North America, they call it an instructor manual. Like any gadget you buy, it comes with an instructor manual. Like that, with any case, an instructor manual is there. So it is up to, if you are really thorough and you think that you can teach the case really well without the instructor manual, it is your choice. But you give a choice to the teacher to have some reference material and how to use this case and get the most out of this case. So there is no harm in having a teaching note, and in certain instances it is very useful also, and it is required also in under certain circumstances. Like if you are preparing a case and you want it to be presented in a conference, or you want to get the case published in a reputed case journal, so then you have to have a teaching note. A teaching note has to accompany the case. Though the case will only be published and the teaching note will not be published in the journal, but the reviewers will look at the teaching note and see whether your case actually makes the cut. So it is a very important part of the whole review process. So you have no way out if you want to put your case to a good case journal, you have to have a teaching note, and that too a very good teaching note. Now we will also discuss what makes a good teaching note, because a good teaching note can make even an ordinary case look good. So these are some of the contents of the teaching note. Like you will usually find these things in a teaching note, some or all of it. So there will be a synopsis, there will be the teaching objectives which are documented there, the issues in the case, like the immediate issues, the basic issues, and the key points or highlights of the case, the indication of level of usage and potential uses of the case, the research method that has been used to prepare the case, then the suggested teaching approach, how the case will be taken, how it will be taught in the class, how the teacher can manage the classroom, then proposed session plan, suggested teaching assignments, possible discussion question, and also the analysis of those questions. So synopsis, as we all know, it is a brief about the case, and you will do well if you can restrict it to half a page or even up to 1 page. So that also gives a ready reference to the teacher. It's like just the teacher can look at it once more after reading the case and focus on the key issues. After the synopsis, one important thing is the teaching objectives. Now the teaching objectives is also very case specific to why you have actually developed that case and how you are going to, what you are going to achieve with that case. So this has to be documented. So here I am just giving an example of a case that was written on Harley-Davidson and its JIT, just-in-time initiative. Now for that particular case, the teaching objectives were like this, that after this case will enable the students to understand the JIT philosophy and its importance in reducing overall production cost and enhancing product quality, to understand how the JIT philosophy requires the alignment of operational strategies to achieve the goal, to understand that besides the use of statistical techniques in achieving JIT, students' involvement is, employees' involvement is equally important, to discuss the challenges faced by Harley-Davidson since 2007 and to explore operational strategies that Harley-Davidson can adopt to overcome those challenges. Now this is for a particular case. So for your case also you have to write down those teaching objectives. Now that is not going to be much of a problem for you, because those are the things you have already dwelt on when you were writing the case. So it is just a question of putting that in paper here. Now next you can also put up the issues. Like one of the issues, some of the issues that are very important are the immediate issues. Now these are the issues in the case itself, like various issues that come up in the case. For example, whether to choose location A or location B. Should we make the product or buy it for a particular company? To adopt individual brands or to have multiple brands under an umbrella brand? Or if you are going for a merger and acquisition, should we go for a merger and acquisition or not? Should this company go for a particular merger? Should it be a big one, mega merger, or a bolt-in merger? Should they go for this particular company or choose a different acquisition target? So these are all coming from the case. These are the problems faced in the case and that are coming out of the case related to the case facts. Now the basic issues are broader, generalized areas, and they deal with the theory or the application of theory and concepts. So what concepts are relevant here to this discussion? So here the example may be about plant location, capacity planning, logistics, make or buy decision, capital budgeting, branding, mergers and acquisitions, post-merger integration issues, things like that. Porter's 5 forces, if that is applicable, the pest analysis, if that is applicable. So these are the basic issues, industry analysis, things like that. Now the highlights are the key highlights of the case. What is coming out of the analysis? So this provides the basis for the wrap up of the case. Like this highlight the more important aspects of the case and its analysis and resolutions. Like when you are looking at the facts of the case in the light of the theory that is there, so there some learning points will come out. So these are the highlights of the case. Now together this itself gives a very good basis for a whiteboard plan. Like if you as a teacher you are using this case and you start you ask your students to identify the issues. So the immediate issues can be written on one extreme side, then you write the basic issues that are relevant, and then the learning that is coming out from the discussion as the highlights. So that itself can be a very good whiteboard plan for the students, though there can be so many other whiteboard plans that are there. So another thing that you have to document in the teaching note is the indication of level of analysis. That is for whom this case is meant. Is it meant only for graduate students, undergraduate students, executives, all of them? Can it be also used for faculty development programs or executive development programs? So all this can be written here. So you are actually talking about the scope of use of this case. So example can be like this. The case has been written to facilitate classroom discussion for postgraduate students. It can also be used in faculty development program. So whatever you think your case is useful for, why you have prepared it, you should write it down. Next is the potential uses of the case. For what courses or topic or areas is it meant? Like you can talk about the subject area here, also particular areas of the subject, chapters or even, or the concepts even. You can write it down here, but at least the subject area. For example, the case is meant for MBA students as part of their entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship curriculum. Additionally, the case can also be used in a course strategy curriculum. So you are telling where your case can be used. Next is the research methodology. Now, while writing a research paper, this is something that is very important. This is a very important part of your research paper. So you put it in the article itself. But for a case, this section you have to put it in the teaching note. So here you document your research approach, what sources of information you have taken, whether it is from primary research or secondary research or a combination of both. If you have used any element of disguise, that also you have to write there. Like partly, if you have disguised certain names, or you have disguised the company's name itself, or you have disguised the industry setting also. So all those things you have to write here. And also some author's disclosure of your position. Like if you are working in that organization or you are a consultant to that organization, do you have any conflict of interest? Basically that is what you have to write there. So an example can be, it can start something like this. This case is prepared from field research. The author has conducted interviews with the CEO, other managers and other key stakeholders. Secondary research has also been done to supplement the research, and some identifying information has been disguised if it has been so. So this is important because the teacher can understand, who is taking your case can understand what kind of research has gone into the preparation of your case, how valid your case is. At the same time, if you are putting this for a journal publication, this is an extremely important part. They will look very hard into these details, the reviewers. Now you can also suggest some teaching approach, like how the participants will be conducted during the case discussion and how the class discussion should flow. So it relates to that. Like, will there be some ice-breaking questions? What can be used as ice-breaking questions? How you get the students talking? Then what should be the follow-up question? Then what should be the next follow-up question? So things like that. How the whole class is to be conducted. For example, the case can be used effectively in classroom discussion and for written case assignments. In the classroom mode, the case moderator can initiate the discussion by asking this particular question or maybe taking a poll. So this many people are saying yes, this many people are saying no. And then you ask the follow-up question. Then you ask this assignment question. Then as part of this assignment question, you can ask some more probing questions. So all those can be documented and given. So it is useful for the teacher who is going to conduct this case in the class. So what happens is that they know what has happened earlier and what works and what does not work. So if you can do that also, you will be doing, you will be making your case more useful and user friendly. And the teacher, if they want to do the same, follow the same, they can go ahead and do that, or they can modify in their own way. Now the proposed session plan is also important and maybe a part of the earlier thing that we have discussed. So this is the sequence of topics and the time allocated to each topic. So this may be, your case may be also taught over a number of sessions, like maybe over 2 sessions. Sometimes that requirement may also be there if your teaching objectives are ambitious enough. So how you plan to proceed through the life of the case? So all those things can be discussed here, like particularly the time management aspects. Like for the introduction, maybe you are devoting 5 minutes. Then for the identification of the issues, the immediate issues and the basic issues, maybe another 10 minutes. Then for the first question, assignment question, maybe some 20 minutes, like that. So if your class is of 75 minutes or 90 minutes, you give a breakup of how your time is going to be managed and how, like particularly in relation to how you are achieving your objective. Now you can also give some suggested student assignments, and this can be pre-class or even after the class. So these are the questions the instructor would like the student to address in preparing for a session or after it. So if you want some compulsory reading to be done, you can assign them beforehand, or some assignment to be done before they come to the class. You want to look them to look at the industry and what is happening immediately, as you are discussing the class. So before that, you want them to look into that, or after the class you give them some follow-up assignment. So that can be also written down. Then you have to also give a list of suggested readings and references. So these are the text or article materials in conjunction with the case the student should read, so that they can prepare well and learn, and you also achieve your objectives of the class. So specific readings can also be assigned along with the case questions as part of the suggested student assignment. So a particular chapter you want them to read from a particular book, you can write down there. Some research papers you want them to read, so that also you write down there, so that they can understand well, not only the teacher but also the student. This can be suggested for them, the teacher can suggest that. Now the possible discussion questions. So a lot of the case has to be done with a number of questions, because the student will be talking is expected to talk most of the time. So how are you going to keep them in the discussion? For that you have to prepare some questions also, and this has to be closely linked to the objective of the case. So the questions to use in a session to stimulate the discussion you have to identify and put in the teaching note. The questions to highlight specific areas of the case, like if there are different discussion pictures in the case, you have to highlight those with the specific questions. So you have to prepare them and you have to put them in the teaching note. And not only that, you have to also answer those questions. So the analysis of the case facts has to be done in light of the theory, the basic issues that you have identified, and the answer to the questions have to be provided. Now this is also one area where teachers or case writers are a little circumspect. They don't want to give their own answers most of the time. But this is something that you have to do. in most of the cases, particularly if you want to get your case published with a journal or in a conference, if you want to win a best paper award or something like that, you have to answer those questions, and that too comprehensively. Some people give some cryptic answers like, yes, this particular issue deals with this particular basic issue, this particular theory, and leave it to that. That's not the way. Like, you have to really do a formal analysis of the case and present that as your answers. So at least try to be as comprehensive as you would expect a top student in your class to be when you are answering those questions. So developing a teaching note is not a one-time affair. So once you have written a teaching note and you have published it, it's not the end of it, because the teaching note has to be revised many times, and it is good if you can revise it many times and make it richer and richer, because after each classroom session new perspectives may come up and you can add those to the teaching note, and this can add to the richness of the class experience also, and the utility of the case also becomes more and more. So always see that if you can revise the teaching note from time to time, so that you can keep your case relevant. Now we have discussed quite a bit about how to write a teaching note and what are the things that goes into a teaching note and why we should be doing certain things and not doing certain things. So now I will start taking your questions. So please come forward with your questions so that we can discuss them thoroughly. Question that has come is, should a teaching note attempt to answer only central questions in the case or peripheral issues too? If so, how to restrict it not to be interdisciplinary? Okay, so you are asking whether we should only focus on the central questions in the case or also look at other things or other disciplinary from other disciplines also, if it can be approached, should we attempt that or not? Now that is a choice as a writer you have to make. As a writer you have to make that choice. You have to make that choice. So it is about what you want to do with the case. If your teaching note suggests, if your teaching objective suggests that it is going to be a focused one, focusing on a certain issues, then probably you can focus only on those. But if you want to increase the versatility of the case and you use your case to be used by others also, then probably you should give this to them as well. Like, you should look at it from the other angles as well. So you can do that as part of your teaching note. But even if you don't want to do that, there are no problems. You can always say that my teaching note focuses on only this particular subject area, and I am giving the question and answers and everything for that, but the case can also be used in certain other areas. So you can do it both way. So that is a choice you have to make. Of course, if you can make it truly interdisciplinary and you can highlight all the uses of the case, it will be excellent. But it's a call that you will have to make. Is there any fixed method that should be followed for writing a good teaching note, or there can be various ways of writing it? Yes, there can be various ways of writing a teaching note, but certain things have to be there. Like what I have discussed today are based on the best practices that are followed in most business schools. So if you are able to have all these headings and you are able to cover them sufficiently, you have a synopsis, you have the teaching objectives, you have the level of uses and the potential uses and the questions and the answers and the list of references, additional readings and references, you would be doing a great job. So there are different ways of doing it, but at least some things have to be there. And if you cover most of the things that I have discussed today, you will be doing a pretty good job. So we have another question coming up. If we were to list down the top 3 qualities of a benchmark teaching note, what would those be? the top 3 qualities of a teaching note. Now, if you are looking at the teaching note, the most important objective of writing a teaching note is to make it useful for the teacher, so that they can take your case and use it with ease in their class. So if you ask me, I think the most important thing here is the usability and how you can make the case usable. One thing is, if you can really give the objectives very nicely, you can communicate your objective very nicely. Next is, if you can identify the questions, relevant ones, and also if you can give some answers to those questions by linking the case facts as well as the theory. So if you can really do that well, nothing like that. That is the most important thing that is there in that you can do in a teaching note. And another thing is also there, you can try to be more brief. Like if with less number of words you can communicate more, that will be more useful for the teacher. So I think those are the things you can focus on if you really want to write a high quality teaching note. Be brief but be comprehensive. No right, no wrong way answers. How far it's true in case analysis? Okay. This is a very interesting question, because most of the time we say that a case has no right or wrong answers. So now how are you going to, what are you going to put in the teaching note? So here, though there are no right and wrong answers, even as a teacher when you are teaching the case, there are no right and wrong answers. But you want your students to take a stand and justify that stand. And that is very important to the learning. So there may be 2, 3 or 4 different perspectives coming from different students, each of them taking their stand, and each of them may be right in certain ways. But once it comes up in the class, it broadens everyone's learning. So here also, when you are writing a teaching note, it is your perspective. So this is, here you are taking a stand. So you should also take that stand in the right way, saying that this is my analysis, this is what it shows, and these are my recommendations based on my analysis, and this is my justification for that, and this is my action plan. So be very firm there. So for you there is a right and a wrong, but sometimes you can also highlight the other point of view as well. If you have tested your case in the class and you are finding different kinds of opinions coming up, different kind of analysis coming up, you can give those as well. So that's how you can make your case really, and your analysis particularly, very robust. But yes, you have to take a stand in your when you are answering those questions. Another question is, if we should a teaching note be written in a suggestive tone or a instructive tone? Okay, again this is a very practical question. So when you are writing a case, should you suggest or should you prescribe? I think more instructive, I think it's prescribe is a better word. I guess when you are writing a teaching note, it is better to be having a suggestive tone, because you are talking to other teachers here. So when you are communicating to the other teachers, you can always, because there is also other ways of using the case. So what you can do is, you can keep your tone suggestive, saying that then this may be done, and or this may be done, or I have found it useful doing this. You can also think of doing this. So like that, if you can put, I think it is much better. Some are very prescriptive, saying that first you do this, then you do that. But you know, that's not really the way, and that's not really the way a teacher may be taking and using your case as well. So they will use it for their own objectives. So keep that leeway. Even in your tone, be a little more suggestive. Another question that has come is, can the answer be hypothetical? Here, you know, you are discussing a case. So let the answers be focused on the case facts and your theory. So there's no, I don't think there's any scope to be hypothetical here. Okay, if you want to bring around something else to justify some answers, once in a while it is okay, but you have a full case to analyze. So why going to that realm? So it is always better if you can focus on the facts of the case and in the light of the concepts that you are teaching. I think that's good enough. How many discussion questions can be incorporated? How many discussion questions can be asked? Maybe that is what you mean. So see, your discussion questions, the number is not as important here. What is important is what you are trying to achieve with the case. And here you are looking at your teaching objectives. So if you have 3 or 5 objectives to meet, based on that you have to develop some questions. So these questions may be, if you can have only 3 questions and cover all the objectives, then it's fine. If you need 7, then go for 7. And also here you are only talking about assignment questions. When you are running the case in the class, you may need additional questions, follow-up questions. So those also have to be identified. So in terms of assignment questions, anything from 3 questions to 7 questions that meet your case teaching objectives is fine. But you also have to identify a number of other discussion questions which will promote the discussion. Should a teaching note be always written keeping some theoretical framework in mind from start? Of course, that's very important. That's the whole point why you are writing the case. If you are not able to teach anything, if there are no theoretical component in it, there is no use of writing that case at all. So that is one of the first things. Your writing of the case, the decision to write the case itself is based on that. In which tense can we write a teaching note? Past or present tense? There are no particular requirement there. Like in case of when you are writing a case, it is good practice to write it in the past tense. But when you are writing your analysis and your teaching note, you go by what's appropriate, what feels right to you. There's no such thing there. So there are no such requirements that it is to be in the past tense or the present tense. So wherever it feels right, good English, that's enough. Some sources, another question is, some sources suggest that the ideal length of a teaching note should not exceed 10 pages. Is it so? Okay. Some people may ask you that, say that our ideal length for a case teaching note is 10 pages. Now that is against case specific, you know, and it also has a lot to deal with your choices. How comprehensive you want the case to be, because there are some schools, like there are some professors from INSEAD, they are not only developing a teaching note but also having a microsite for the case. They are putting up a site for the case, website, where a lot of information are there. So one should also ask a question about how much is too much. So here you should ask yourself the question, how much information is too much information? If you think you can do a good job with 10-page teaching note, that's fine. If you think you require a few pages more, even if it is 30 pages, no problem. But you have to also realize that it will be killing for the teacher to go through all that. So if you can really make it useful for the teacher within the 10 pages, nothing like it. Most important thing is that the depth has to be there. It is not about the length. It is all about the depth. So if you can achieve the depth of analysis within that 10 pages, that's much better than having a 30-page teaching note. But otherwise, if you think it cannot be done, even if it is 30 pages or 50 pages also, it does not matter, as long as it is useful. But of course, you have to make that call. Try to be brief as far as possible, but comprehensive is more important. Then, should I cover case study related theory concepts in the teaching note? Of course, that's the whole point. It should be all related to the case. How to end a teaching note? Okay, this is a very interesting question. How do you end a teaching note? I think it makes sense if you can summarize the key points. If you can summarize the key points, the learning points of the case, it would be very good for the conclusion of concluding part of the teaching note. Another thing is, if you know what happened afterwards, you can give an epilogue. You can write an epilogue saying that after the case, these are all the developments that have happened. So that also brings the case to some kind of conclusion. So you might have discussed about what the company should do in a particular situation, but at the end you are also telling, okay, the company did this. So what the company did may not be the answer. It may be successful or unsuccessful, but you can always tell that to the students because some of them may be interested. So that is also one thing that you can do. One is a summary and the other is an epilogue about what happened next. Another question is, what are the important aspects to be highlighted, that is things which must not be missed in a teaching note? Okay, some things that should not be missed in a teaching note is, one is the questions and the analysis, that those are very extremely important. What teaching objectives are there, that is extremely important. So at least, the very least that a teaching note should have is a synopsis, the teaching objectives, the assignment questions and answer to those questions, and some references if any. This is the very basic thing. Anything else that we have discussed are additional and goes towards making your case better and your teaching note also much more robust. Is there any specific format to be followed while framing a teaching note? So I think we have discussed a good format here, right from the beginning to the end. I think if you can use that as a format, I think that will be one of the best ways. That is quite a comprehensive format. You can pick and choose. You can keep out a few things, or you can add something also, but that is a very nice format. Should case study and teaching note be prepared simultaneously, or should they be prepared one after the other? Which one is a better option? Now this is a very interesting question. Which should be written first, the teaching note or the case, or should they be done simultaneously? See, the whole point of writing a case is that it should be easy to teach. It should teach certain things to the students. So you anyway start with the objectives. So it is always better if you can do the two things simultaneously. In that way you will have checks and balances. If you are trying to discuss certain things but there is not enough facts available in the case, you can put those facts in the case. If there are some additional facts coming in which has not been dealt with that particular theory and some other theory may apply, you can get that thing in. So if you are doing those two things simultaneously, I think that is the best way of doing it. Is the approach for technical school case studies same or will it be different? Okay. I think we are talking here in relation to, say, technical schools versus business schools. I think the basics are the same. The basics are the same because you are going to talk about, you are actually using the case method. Even if you are doing it in a technical school, and there what you want to have is discussion. So you are putting the facts in the case and the analysis in the light of certain theories in the teaching note. So you can have the same kind of approach. Okay. Is it necessary to provide analysis for immediate issues in the teaching note? Okay. There is no analysis. Okay. Is it important to identify immediate issues? It is. You will be doing it. If you are answering the questions, you have to do it. There is no other way out. But whether you want to put it in the teaching note or not in a documented form is up to you. Because without identifying the immediate issues, you will be not able to do a good analysis of the case. So you have to do it anyway. But if you want to put it in the teaching note or not, that is up to you. Can a teaching note be written with a research orientation instead of only focusing on analyzing theoretical concepts? Okay, I don't really understand what you mean by that. Research orientation. Can a teaching note be written with a research orientation instead of only focusing on analyzing theoretical concept? I think the whole point is that you have to have a research orientation, and otherwise you won't be able to write a very good teaching note. And particularly if you are targeting journals like case research journal, they will look very hard into that component. What kind of research orientation you have? Like when you are you have identified the basic issues, you can also do some literature review and put it up there. That will be very well appreciated by journals like CRJ. So I guess a research orientation is very important here. So you can always do that. What is the basis for selecting additional readings and references for a teaching note? Now, the only basis is that you want those things to be read by the teacher and the students. You might have referred those, and they may be required for basic understanding and discussion of the case. Like say a particular chapter you are giving for as additional readings and references. So then what happens, you have referred that book, and you would want the teacher who is teaching the case to also refer that book, or the teacher can give those two as additional reading to the students. So everyone is in the same page. So anything that you have referred or you want referred by the teacher or the students, you should put it up as the list of additional readings and references. It's not just to impress, it's based on the utility. In the analysis, can we provide two opposing views or we stick to one viewpoint? Now, I think part of it we have discussed as part of a previous question. So the question being asked here is that should we provide two opposing views in the teaching note or should we stick to one view? Now, there are some advantage of doing that, giving the opposite views, particularly if you have tested the case in the class and you know that different kind of viewpoints are coming in, and if you can summarize those and put the different kinds of viewpoints, it makes the teaching note more useful. So I think that's a good idea. You can always do that if you can give two opposing viewpoints. Otherwise, if you just give your analysis also and stick to that and justify that well, that is also good enough. I guess we had some very good questions, and there has been quite a bit of learning for everyone here, including me. So we'll close the session now, and I really look forward to meeting some of you in our conference ICSE 2017. Wishing you all the best. I look forward to your cases and your teaching note, and I'm sure you will do a good job. So wishing you all the best. Thank you.